Hey, Zern listeners, I'm going back to the beginning and rewatching this whole season all over again, just reacting to the key scenes, knowing what we know now. Let's watch.
Hi. Like, fucking wow. Like, Raven looks damn good. I mean, she looks fucking incredible. Look at her. She's wearing a tight dress. She has a great body, beautiful smile, beautiful eyes. Of course, she gets attention from guys. Raven's a baddie. Raven's 100% a smoke show.
Smoke show, smokehouse, smoke thing. Yeah, there's that scene. Yeah. I wonder if that was another producer-produced situation where because Cole talked about how at the pool scene, the producers went around to all of the cast members and individually kind of poked at them, prodded them to say, who are you attracted to? Or do you see any of these people as being attractive? And then either people didn't respond honestly, or they didn't use those clips. So you can imagine that they did it to everyone, and then they only used Bartice's statements about Raven because it plays into the drama of the show. I don't know. I mean, Bartice still said that, of course, and then he says worse things later tonight.
Exactly. Will any of those things change the way you feel about one another?
Some of you were telling me that it's pronounced Lachey, Nick and Vanessa Lachey, and I was calling them the Latchkeys because I don't know who these people are. Apparently y'all do, or many of you do, and people are saying that I was so Gen X because I don't know who they are. Yeah, I don't. How do you know them? Where are they from? I guess I could Google it, but why start now?
From the pods to here, there's been a disconnect for me.
Right.
There's been like a, holy crap, you're not what I had pictured.
Yeah.
This is different. I have to reconnect that person in the pods to the person who's in my bedroom now.
Yeah.
And so I'm gonna be honest with y'all. I'm like figuring things out, and I'm like,
here's the deal.
What?
I can 100.
Yeah, so I think a lot of people interpreted this as Cole is not physically attracted to her, that he thinks she's not attractive. And maybe that is the case, but we haven't heard. I keep waiting, like, what exactly is he communicating here? What's in his heart? And because there's another possibility that what he's reacting to is the conflict that they've had, and that if they didn't have the conflict, that adjustment to being in person with her would have been much smoother. But it happens, right? All people of all genders in general, when we feel, because it's often attributed only to women along these lines, but believe me, it's not attributable only to women, that when we feel discomfort and hostility and distance and conflict and anger and disapproval, we have a hard time being physical with that person. There are variants to this, of course, and it depends, but often they'll say women need to have emotional security in order to have sex, and men get emotional security from having sex. And there are some socialization issues here, but I've treated many men who will complain to me in therapy about how they have a hard time having physical interactions with their partner, having motivation or even having it go well. And the reason why they say it's not going well is because they fight a lot and they don't feel comfortable around that person. Often for us, when we open ourselves up physically and we hand ourselves over to each other and we meld in that way physically, we can't be afraid. Fear is the sex killer, to reuse a Dune saying. Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the sex killer. In that, and again, often it's attributed only to women, which is fine to say that women like that, but to say that men don't is massively sexist. I just have to tell you, the notion that is in our society that men are just walking boners and are just ready to have sex no matter what the circumstances, they'll stick it in anything, a tree hole or whatever, is one of the most demeaning things you could ever say to a man. A lot of men will agree with it because they have been socialized to believe that that's true. And two, they will think like, well, but that's what a real man is. That's the ideal masculine pinnacle, is if you're ready to go at all times and you can do it all day long, no matter who it is, no matter what the circumstances are. Now, can some people, again, regardless of gender, keep in mind that are there some people that can have sex with pretty much anyone at any time? Yes, again, regardless of gender. So I don't know what he's talking about right here. He's framing it as he's trying to match up the three-dimensional Zanab with the pod. Let's see if he clarifies that.
100% see that. because you probably had an expectation of what to see when the
probably had a
fucking
picture
doors
in your
open.
head. You had a
I had no picture in my fucking head. I just
Well, here's the thing. I'm still in love. it's different now.
Oh, 100%. It's
like,
very different.
Because I was able to craft and create the girl that was in the pod.
Yeah, there's really nothing that he's saying that is in line with the narrative that people had about him. He's saying what I would imagine all of them would experience, which is I now have to fall in love with the three-dimensional person. You know, it's just a completely different thing. I'm still in love, but it's a different sort of a thing because we're in person. You know, he's not saying anything about not being attracted to Zanab. Zanab and Colleen just had an exchange where Zanab said they did it 5 times over the past, like, I think 36 hours they've been together. And Zanab was celebrating that and saying, oh my God, we've done it so, you know, in all likelihood, things are working well in that department in terms of attraction. So I think he's just talking about the emotional feeling that you get from someone through the wall and then in person.
And I had this idea of what she was. But now that I have the real her, it's like I have to adapt to, instead of what I wanted her to be, now it's who she is, period.
I mean, that statement seems to point in a direction. And of course, if Zanab had heard that, that's different, right? That's different than the vision I had of her in the pods is different. But he's saying, he basically just said she's not the vision that I want her to be, regardless of what I thought about her in the pods. There's what I wanted her to be, and then there is what she is. Now, he could be saying there's the sort of fantasy that I wanted, and then the reality, which is a lateral move for me. But the way he phrases it seems like he's saying she is not what he wants, which could be true. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? In regular life, that's what we do. We date. And when we figure out that maybe we're not into that person, we just stop dating that person, hopefully early, or maybe don't date him at all.
This is reality.
Like adapting, but I
Real
still
life.
love her, but it's just like a different love. Zanab can be kind of passive aggressive.
Oh, okay.
That can't be a good thing, though. That
So
can't be a
like,
good thing, though.
no, it's not at all a good thing. It just beats me down. So I'm
depends
like,
on how you
I'm
take
in
it.
love with you. I'm attracted to you. But everything I do, you've got a passive aggressive comment.
Yeah, so right away he's developing that narrative that the verbal is, I'm in love with you, I want to be with you, but then there's these hostile, what I would say is, just say hostile, because I don't know exactly what you mean by passive aggressive, just say mean or judgmental or highly critical or something like that, because I think that's what he really means.
So she's gonna be like, hey, you think you could maybe just like next time maybe not put your towel on the coffee table? No. Because to her, that's how she banters and how she plays, but it's just not fun for me.
Did you not get that from her in the pods?
Okay, then if she did it in the pods, I pictured her doing it smiling because her voice is so uplifting. But now
Yeah, I can see that too. I mean, the way she comes across when she is saying those things, it has a different feel, and you can imagine it might come across differently in the pods, yeah. Plus, like, in the pods, you won't come across those things because there are no towels to criticize because you're not in each other's space.
Last night to the silent treatment really fucked with me. Yes. But he's lovely physically. Totally matches up.
I mean, like you, emotional. So cute. Okay, just don't worry about anything.
I think it's just very easy to, like, with your own insecurities to get in your head, right?
Yes.
So Colleen and Zanab bonded in the pod situation, and so I think Colleen knows from that, or I don't know, or is detecting now that Zanab is reading into it with her insecurities and is telling her, and Zanab is agreeing, and that's great triangulation, by the way, constructive triangulation by Colleen. It's just like, hey, I hear you and I support you and I validate you, and don't let your insecurities ruin the situation because I think you're reading into it. I think that's what Colleen is saying, and I think Zanab is absolutely agreeing with that.
I promise I don't look like this on the reg.
Oh, she looks hot on the reg.
You wouldn't believe it. Look at it.
I don't know, I'm still gonna like it.
Thanks, babe. It's the
So it's still a thing where she's insecure and he's doing a lot to try to reassure her.
Give me some champagne on the beach. I will, like, really watch you do anything.
Watch,
Fine.
watch whatever.
I will watch you do anything.
After seeing all the guys,
Yep.
you having any second thoughts?
Not one. Not one. No.
I think that the producers prod them to have these conversations. I don't know that for sure, but some of the people were saying that they will do that. So anyway, he says, after seeing the other guys, do you have any second thoughts? And she's like, no. All right.
No?
Not even a little bit. Raven's too much for me. Alexa's just not my type. Colleen is happily off with Matt. I mean, everyone's just wonderful, so.
I know, but you were really excited to meet Colleen. And you said
was.
that last night too. You were like, oh, her and Matt.
Majority of girls that I have dated have looked more like Colleen.
So this is another one of those conversations that I think he is bumbling his way through, and most people from the outside would say, Cole, you need to clarify what you're saying, and is particularly hurtful and concerning and worrisome to Zanab. And I think this is one of those times where I think at least it appears that Zanab on the inside is having tremendous triggering at this moment, but is not saying that to him, is not indicating it, is coming across like everything's fine.
Okay.
So.
I can see that. I would peg you with someone that looks like Colleen.
Exactly. But personality-wise, you are much more up my alley.
How do I do physically on your type?
Physically, you're different than anyone I've ever dated.
Oh.
Interpreted one way, it's I'm absolutely attracted to you and you're a beautiful person, but my typical ways in my 25 years or 10 years of being a dating person, I just typically don't go for women like you. But I'm so glad that I did go for a person like you because I'm 100% attracted to you. It's a problem that I would typically go for other types of people. So that's one interpretation. The other interpretation is I'm not attracted to you. And I think most people would understand that he should clarify that pretty heavily with something reassuring if possible. So let's watch.
Is that hard for you?
Does it seem like it's hard for me?
I don't know.
Heavy web. Oh, I'm good. You gotta stop patterning me up.
Okay, so she says something a little hostile, not terribly. Is that hard for you? And he says, does it look like it's hard for me? I think what he's saying is, because we don't get the benefit, I think, thank God, of watching them have sex and that kind of thing. So I think what he's saying, because he knows that the two of them in bed are having a lot of affirming moments. And he's saying, I think, well, does it seem like I have a hard time with you? Because, we're having a lot of sex and I'm absolutely into you and da-da-da. So I think he thinks he's reassuring her, but I don't think it's reassuring to her. Now, another possibility is that he is hurt by her hostility that she's exhibited up until this point and has been really since the first full day, getting digs at her instead of being direct with her and saying, Zanab, I just have to tell you something. I mean, the way you come across to me sometimes, it really just hurts my feelings. Maybe I'm too sensitive. I don't know. He's not saying that, though. It's a lot of jokiness and potential passive aggression of calling her passive aggressive instead of saying. So that's just one thing to think about. Whenever you have an accusation in your head about your partner, like, you never listen to me, or you're passive aggressive, or you're so cold. So those are absolutely destructive things to say. You might think they're accurate. They might even be quote unquote accurate. You might even have friends or even a therapist that agrees with you. It's not constructive to say those things. It's way more constructive to own your feelings and stick with that. To say, when you do this, when you don't talk to me a lot in the daytime, that's another way of saying you're cold and distant. So, you say, when we don't have a lot of contact, maybe that's a better way to put it. When we don't have a lot of contact and intimacy and connection, I get worried and it also hurts my feelings and I get sad. Okay, that's a very different statement than you are cold, right? A lot more mature, a lot more differentiated, a lot more owning your feelings, and a lot more constructive because the person will be provoked to have empathy for you and go, oh, well, I don't want you to feel sad. Whereas if you attack them and say, you're distant, that's hurtful, and then they want to defend themselves. No, I'm not. You're the distant one, okay? So what he is doing potentially is communicating it through these jokey, passive ways instead of just being honest with her in the same way that she's not completely being honest with him. So, but I don't know. It's hard to know what's going on in his head. I think he is conflicted, and it's possible he doesn't even really know why he's conflicted. And I don't know if he's being completely straight up with her about that conflict.
You're different than anyone I've ever dated.
Oh. Is that hard for you?
Does it seem like it's hard for me?
I don't know.
Heavy webbed. Oh, I'm good. You gotta stop fattening me up.
Oh, you're okay with fattening me up though?
You're
You're like,
fattening
no.
yourself up.
Wow.
Yeah, when you know how she interpreted all these statements, it's like, oh, Cole, I don't think you know what you're doing. That's the way it seems to me. I don't know.
Being a 30-year-old woman, I really try to not be that female that is insecure. But Cole is unfiltered 1,000% of the time. But that's part of Cole being just so transparent, which is one of the many things I love about him.
Yeah, so I forgot about these statements, and it's such a different perspective by the time we get to the altar and to the reunion. She either experienced much more problems beyond this point, or her perspective changed because, this moment she's trying to convince herself of something. I don't know. But in this moment, she seems to have a much more, I think, relatable perspective to what a lot of people would say when they watch this, of just like, yeah, he is making some mistakes about the way that he communicates, but he's also extremely transparent, which might be very reassuring. It's like, well, what you see, what you get. There's nothing hidden there. And when he says he loves you and he's into you, then you can believe that because there's really nothing he's holding back because he'll say anything that's on his head. It perturbs me, but I also love him because of that. That's what it sounds like what she's saying, right?
We do have the same solid foundation that we built our love on, which I hope does continue because I in no way want a love that I have to question or be, insecure about.
And she seems aware. I forgot how many times she states that she has insecurities, that she recognizes that she can be insecure, which didn't seem to be exhibited at the altar, at the reunion, and in the interviews. She doesn't seem to talk about that. So I don't know what happened there. All right, well, that is it for that episode. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.